So while this one is more limited to a division, more limited to a group of kids, we have several that are, again, innovations that we're really driving across the school, okay? And some, in 2 instances in particular, this being one, are going to tilt how we teach and learn at Parish and what the teaching and learning environment works at Parish. And for this, you really have to understand what we believe about the type of student we work with, right? At Parish, we work with capable to exceptional kids, right? We're broadly inclusive in terms of the type of student that we attract and seek and think we excel in working with, right? So while some independent schools sit very happily over at the high end and work with the exceptionally or gifted student and pretty exclusively there and do a great job of doing that, Parish has really sought in its Episcopal spirit to be broader in the type of child that it brings here, right? So for us, defining preparation has to reflect that, right? Rather than being reliant exclusively on SAT scores and what percentage of our kids are taking AP courses and what their scores are in those AP courses and then what their college band looks like, right? Which are important metrics for us. We monitor and gauge them. We're not sitting them over here into a pot to ignore. We wanted to take preparation and think about it at a different level, right? And in doing so, we think that will impact how we teach and learn here, right? So we've identified 4 really key component skills of preparation that we think are essential for kids to have, right? We think, as I mentioned, we want them to be able to think critically and demonstrate that. We want them to be able to communicate cogently. We want to be able to create things of meaning and purpose, to solve problems and to do something with. And we want them to be able to collaborate, right? We think that's an essential skill. We've done the research. We know where kids are heading. We know what the 21st century world looks like. It's interconnected. It's complex. It's changing very rapidly. And we think those skills are ones that lead to success not just in college, right, but also in the world in which they're going to be leading and serving. So it's fine to say that, from a philosophical standpoint. I can sit up here and spout that as head of school all the time. But what does that mean to the practitioner? And how do we as the leaders of the practitioners move and help support them to get there? And then as for parents, how do we say to you, we said we're going to do this. Here's the proof, right? We needed to be able to demonstrate this in ways other than just giving your child an A on his or her report card and a comment, because we thought we could elevate the accountability measure. And so that is where this digital portfolio called My Panther Portfolio and the whole concept of the profile of the Parish student became an initiative for us. So last year I said we're going to finalize these profiles with definitions and performance tasks. And for those of you who aren't educators, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, I'm sure, unless you're like, okay, whatever. And we didn't really have anything tangential to show you. But last year, a committee of faculty and parents, again, and leaders on campus, most notably Melissa Grabsky, assistant head of lower school for academics, and Michelle Lyon, our upper school head and provost, did hard work defining these outcomes in 10 practices, all right? And then our director of instructional technology, Dolores Gende, developed the concept of the digital portfolio for us called My Panther Portfolio, where we'll begin to collect evidence of these outcomes being achieved by our kids that can be shared over the time of their 14-year journey through Parish, okay? So as an early model template of what we intend to roll out in some form next year in the lower school, this is the My Panther Portfolio. And what you'll see here is the beginnings of a digital footprint for a young lady, in this case named Sandy. She looks like she'd be in 4th grade, says she's in 10th grade, but you'll roll with me here. So Sandy can use this particular venue to begin to capture elements of who she is and what she does. You can see here she's chronicled some of the academic organizations she's in, some of the leadership responsibilities she's had. She can post a blog for community service. You imagine our kids that are in Scouts or in other community organizations could use this as a digital repository of things that they're doing that aren't even affiliated with Parish. And of course, over time, students aren't just defined by those things as well. There are those softer sides of our kids, things that they're doing on and off campus that tell us a lot about who they are and what they do, where their points of passion are. This can become another place where they can chronicle that type of information. But beyond that, I mean, what the digital My Panther Portfolio really allows us to do is say to you as parents and as educators, remember, these are things that we think are important for a Parish student to be able to do. And while I won't go through all 10 of them, you can see as you begin to look just at the first 4 of these, how we've interwoven those 4 outcomes I've talked about, right? Communication, right, in the first one. In the second one, collaboration would probably jump most out at you, and you'd see that as well. And the third, critical thinking, right, is certainly the one that might jump out at you here, as well as in this one, where they have to imagine alternatives and generate solutions for problems. So you'll see interwoven through these practices, these concepts of critical thinking and collaboration, creativity, and communication in these preparation outcomes. What's exciting about these is soon they will begin to appear in report cards, and we can assess toward them. We can report to you on these. We can begin to make this language that's shared among teaching faculty, parents, and school leaders, right? We can begin to train, as we will this summer, our faculty to move their lesson design and their course design toward these outcomes, right? We can begin to talk about when we go into classrooms to do observations with faculty, how these practices are being pursued and made manifest and then assessed and demonstrated and documented. And then working with faculty and students, especially as they get older, we'll be able to place into the My Panther portfolio examples of student work for each practice, essentially a digital catalog that allows us to take that practice, in this case, I'll just use the first practice as an example, and say, as a student has journeyed across their parish experience, give me some examples that demonstrate that they can communicate to a diverse group, right, for a diverse purposes, right? And so in this particular instance, what you'll see here is it's not subject specific. While you and I might think about writing and speaking primarily as an English function, you can really begin to capture examples of work from across the different subject venues. So more traditionally, here's a reading example. This is an artifact, okay? That's education speak, basically to say proof, okay? And so we put in here an artifact in this particular instance to support this principle from a first grade student. This is going to be one that will really help us to look at, for example, reading fluency and communication. And again, it doesn't have to be in the cloud space of the digital world now. You can put up audio, video, scanned written work, and this just happens to be an audio piece. Okay, so as we monitor reading fluency development in students, that's something that we could certainly include as a possibility under practice 1. But at the same time, as students move along, we want to look at more sophisticated levels of work. You could move into the upper school, and indeed there, in a more traditional format, when we're starting to look at best pieces of writing in a more traditional form, we can have an example here of a particular type of authentic writing experience. This one, penning a formal letter to a real person, as it turns out, from Eric, okay, about why he's so passionate about tennis. Okay, so it gets to that form of writing a formal piece of communication to an authentic audience. It might be a best piece practice of writing that Eric selects. It goes into the digital portfolio. Okay, so over time, we really feel what this is going to do is touch teaching and learning in classrooms, allow us to really deliver on our covenant to you all about what our promise is for educational outcomes, and at the same time, for all of us collectively, really elevate our discussion about what preparation means and looks like. Get us away from some of those metrics that, quite frankly, in independent schools have become sort of the marks and merit badges of distinction, and they're a bit misleading, right? Because if I just want to choose to accept my college placement list as a school, quite frankly, I can do that, right? I can take those kids who I know that if I really don't tamper with them too badly are going to yield terrific college acceptances 4 years from now or 8 years from now. A little lesser case, 12 years from now. It becomes a little harder to do the younger the kids are as you accept them. But schools can really play with that with us in independent school world. And it also, if that becomes your driver, right, how you teach and learn becomes more pressure toward those outcomes. So the joy of learning becomes stripped away, right? And that's why schools in those instances are talking about having rigorous programs, right? They're rigorous because they're demanding. They're preparing kids to make those marks of distinction that we've determined to be important. And those marks of distinction, quite honestly, are ones that just make the school look good or parents feel good. In some cases, kids feel good, right? At Parish, we say vigorous because we want learning to be innovating, engaging, energizing, right? Not unidirective, teacher to student, right? Not consumptive, student just accepting information from students, but from teachers, but productive, where students are asked to do things with the information that they are receiving, because we feel that's the type of learning that becomes more joyful and less burdensome.